Hello friends, the 601st day of the war between Russia and Ukraine continues. The main news today is the first use of ATACMS missiles by Ukraine. But first, let's look at the situation near Avdiivka. The hottest section of the front remains Avdiivka, where today marks a week from the start of Russian offensive operations. There were more than 100 Russian attacks there in a week, the General Staff reported. The main battles took place in the areas of east of Stepove, Lastochkine, Tonenke, Keramik, Siverne, Netailove and Pervomayske. Russia threw dozens of tanks and armored vehicles into the battle, some of which were destroyed, Ukraine said. According to Ukrainian military telegram channels, the most difficult situation remains north of Avdiivka on the Krasnogorivka side. Russian telegram channels write that the Russians managed to advance near Stepove. They also announce advances near Pervomayske and attempts to regain the initiative near Siverne. Apparently, fighting in the Avdiivka area is being fought for every meter. However, a similar situation is observed in other sections of the front, where one of the sides is conducting active offensive operations, as near Robotyne or near Bakhmut. The advance of the Russians near Avdiivka is insignificant at the moment, but attacks are ongoing, although not with the same intensity as before. My friends, the robot will continue.
Build military analyst Julian Ropp believes that Avdiivka may repeat the fate of Bakhmut since the Russians intend to advance, despite the losses. In his opinion, the initial plan of the Russians is to bypass the city from the west, capturing the villages of Yevhenii, Stepove, and Berdychi, and encircle them. However, the Ukrainian armed forces were able to stop the Russians near Yevhenii and on the railway line in Stepove. I note that the villages indicated by the analyst are dangerously close to the supply route for the Avdiivka garrison of the Ukrainian armed forces through Lastochkine and Orlivka. And even approaching these points, which has already taken place in the course of Russian actions, complicates the supply of the Avdiivka fortified area, as it makes it more vulnerable to enemy attacks. At the same time, the Russians write that in recent days the offensive near Avdiivka has slowed down greatly as their troops approach the underground fortifications of the Ukrainian army, which cannot be stormed by armored vehicles. The infantry is trying to take them with the help of artillery, which, as for the Ukrainian armed forces near Robotyne, greatly slows down the progress. In addition, according to Russian telegram channels, the Ukrainian army brought reserves into the battle and also sharply increased artillery fire, which also affected the situation. Nevertheless, the strategy of the Russians is clear, not only to storm the fortifications of the Ukrainian armed forces near Avdiivka, but most importantly to reach the lines from which they can more accurately strike at the logistics of the Ukrainian garrison in the city. Apparently, this is why the German journalist Bill Ropp compared the situation with Bakhmut. The Russians were able to capture almost the entire city after they took all the roads that led into it under fire control. Since May, Ukrainian troops began to open this semi-ring through counterattacks, but by that time most of Bakhmut was already under the control of the Russians. Another task at the moment for the Russians in the Avdiivka area is the problem of consolidating in those positions where he managed to advance. This is mainly the direction Krasnogorivka-Stepove and to the south the direction to Vodiane-Siverne, and also the Terikon position, which they did not maintain, but they are making some progress in this direction. In my opinion, now the enemy command is regrouping its strike tactical groups and will try to attack again, more likely in the Opatne area, or will try to transfer its efforts to the area along the Vodiane-Tunenki road. Therefore, I don't think that after the first failure, the enemy command will just like that refuse to continue the offensive. After all, the enemy's main task to push the Ukrainian armed forces away from the outskirts of Donetsk has not been solved. And so to the main news. Today, the Ukrainian armed forces reported that they attacked Russian helicopters in the rear at night near Luhansk and Berdyansk. Details of the strikes were not given, but it was stated that they were successful. Russian telegram channels began writing that the attack was carried out by American ATACMS missiles. They also published photos of fragments of supposedly ATACMS. Later, Ukrainian Special Operations Forces published more detailed information. They reported that a successful operation had been carried out to destroy airfields, called Dragonfly. According to the latest data, the following were destroyed in Berdyansk and Luhansk: 9 helicopters of various modifications, special equipment that was located at the airfields, an air defense launcher, ammunition, and airfield runways were damaged. The ammunition in Berdyansk detonated until 4 a.m. The detonation in Luhansk continued until 11 a.m., the Special Operations Forces said in a statement. By the way, today Zelensky thanked some partners for effective weapons, as we agreed. The Western press confirms the receipt of missiles by Ukraine. The Wall Street Journal reports that Ukraine has used ATACMS for the first time. According to the publication, American long-range missiles were recently secretly transferred to Ukraine. According to the New York Times, a small number of ATACMS missiles with cluster munitions were transferred to Ukraine. They attacked Russian airfields. Politico, citing sources, writes that Biden decided to transfer missiles to Ukraine after the summer offensive of the Ukrainian armed forces did not produce the desired result. The publication recalls that Ukraine has been asking for these weapons for months, but the U.S. president did not give them, fearing escalation. Now his position has changed. The decision also came due to the administration's growing concerns about Russia's buildup of troops and equipment for a fall offensive that could be the largest Russian maneuver in months. According to the publication, new attacks are expected in the coming weeks on different parts of the front line, therefore it is imperative that Ukraine has longer-range ATACMS systems to hit airfields and ammunition depots in order to negate any logistical advantages of Russia. Towards the evening, Russian military telegram channels published new photos of what were allegedly the remains of a rocket that attacked the airfield in Berdyansk at night. The markings MGM-140A Block 1 are visible on them. This is a modification of the ATACMS missile. This is a version with a cassette warhead and a firing range of up to 165 kilometers. Another positive news. Ukraine received all 31 Abrams tanks promised by the American side. The Voice of America writes about this, citing Colonel Martin O'Donnell, representative of the U.S. Army in Europe and Africa. Along with the tanks, tank crews from the Ukrainian Army and technical personnel who were trained in Germany arrived in Ukraine. Ammunition and spare parts were also transferred with the tanks. About 200 Ukrainian soldiers trained on training tanks at U.S. Army training grounds in Germany.
Friends, considering what is happening in my country, this channel is now my only source of income. If you are able to support me financially, I will be very grateful. Thank you very much and see you in the next video.